The ability to take pain. So as I was saying before, this is about emotional resilience. So let's go back to Bill Miller. So think about what Bill Miller went through during the financial crisis. He had recently gone through a divorce, which he said to me it was an amicable divorce, but it halved his assets. He then invests his half of the assets on margin because he is always kind of a bit of a risk taker. He loses 80% on paper of his assets in the financial crisis, whereas he said to me his wife put all her money in bonds and did fantastically and outperformed him massively and now has like the biggest house in Greenwich, Connecticut. And so he's done well since then, so he's recovered. But his two funds get really hammered, and assets just fly out of the window. I mean, at his peak at Legg Mason, he was overseeing $77 billion. Assets go down to 800 million. And when this happens, he has to lay off tons of people. And so he ends up laying off over 100 people. And he said to me, you know, this was the worst thing. He said, people lost their money, investors lost their money, and people lost their jobs because of me, because of mistakes that I made. And I said to him, did you blame yourself? And he said, sure as hell I blamed myself. He said, I looked around, I wanted to blame someone else. There was no one else to blame. They were my mistakes. And during this period, he told me that he put on 40 pounds. And I said to him, you know, how come you put on 40 pounds? And you know, dietary issues are important to me because I'm always wondering how I can ever lose weight. And so I was interested in his answer. And he said, well, I ate a lot of comfort food. I ate a lot of cheeseburgers. I ate a lot of Chinese food. I would drink red wine at night. And he said, you know, I could have come home and just had grilled salmon and broccoli and Perrier. But he said, a man can only take so much pain. So Miller said to me at one point that if you did a brain scan of the greatest value investors, he said he's pretty convinced that you would find that the greatest value investors are actually wired differently than the rest of us, that they have, that the part of the brain that processes, say, the fear of loss or the pain of loss is actually kind of stunted in them. And I think you can see this in people like Buffett, but there is extremely unemotional. You see it in Marx as well. And yet, Miller, during this period of very tremendous intensity, gets hit badly enough that he puts on 40 pounds and it becomes this incredibly intense experience. And I think this is a powerful reminder that you really need to pay attention. If you want to be long-term successful as an investor, you need to pay attention to the need to build emotional resilience. And this is a really important point that I think particularly people forget when we're going through a good period. You tend to assume things will always be good. And you tend to overreach during these good periods. You know, we get full of overconfidence and hubris. And I think it's really key to remember one of the things that Howard Marks says, which is that life is basically a pendulum, that our own lives are a pendulum. They swing one way from one extreme to the other, that the market is a pendulum, that market euphoria is a pendulum. And so just not to get carried away during these periods where everything is good. You don't want to overreach. You want to work on the basis that there is going to be a time where I'm going to get hit. And this isn't to be gloomy about it. It's just you want to take various safeguards, like various precautions. You don't want to overreach. You know, Bill Ruane once said to me, you just never want to invest in margin because when the market gets hit, it's just impossible to be rational because it's such an emotionally grueling thing. So I think this sense of taking great caution during the periods where things are good is a key to setting yourself up to be able to dealing with pain. But I think also it's really important to look at where different investors get their emotional strength and to ask yourself, so where will I get my strength? I mean, he said it's their general attitude to misfortune. It's that they're saying you can't necessarily control what happens to you, but you can control your attitude towards it. And this is a very, very important idea. And when I look at all of these great investors, it's very tempting to assume, you know, that there was this straight upward trajectory and their lives were always going to be a success. And it's really not true at all. You know, these guys, all of them went through